It's Lil Baby.
All right, let's do it. 20, yeah, I keep confirming. 22? All right, amazing. Welcome to episode 22 of Conversations with Chai. I am your host, Ihram Chowdhury, aka Lil Baby Ram Ram. Today, I have with me digital creator Sufi Malik. Sufi, thank you for doing this.
Nice. Yeah.
I was like,
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for the conversation.
No, absolutely. First I want to talk about straight up, I just want to say, because I didn't tell you when you walked in.
Yeah.
Your fits are insane.
Oh my God, thank you. I appreciate that. That's like the highest compliment you could possibly give me.
I figured you would care. Everybody who really puts the fits on, they actually care. They be nonchalant about it.
Yeah.
You could tell deep down, they really care about these fits.
Yeah, it was actually so funny. Before I came here, Anjali was like, so what are you going to talk about? And I was like, I have no idea, which I feel like is really good. I just want it to be a conversation. Because I feel like I've done something like this before and it's always very structured. I know what's going to happen. And I feel like that kind of makes me a little bit more stiff, And she was just like, oh, you should talk about your fashion content. You should talk about this and that. And I was like, yeah, I should. And then I kind of came in here and I was like, I'm just going to let the conversation go.
Yeah.
So
is Anjali like that for you where it's hey, you should do this with XYZ career? Do y'all kind of communicate about those things?
For sure, yeah, all the time. Yeah, all the time. I feel like if anything, we get advice from each other a lot. Because we're in the same field. She's a wedding planner, so she kind of goes away from it for a while. But I've been doing digital creation full time for 2 years now, and before that, I was an art teacher. And I was a photographer, and so in a sense, I do a little bit of everything. But yeah, we keep open communication about almost everything, which I think is great.
That's cool. So y'all really talk shop in terms of strategy, right?
Yeah.
Anjali on her own right is
she's fantastic. Yeah.
Fantastic. What I'm saying? So that's amazing to hear. And it's so interesting that you're saying that you were an art teacher before.
Mm-hmm.
So I always love seeing the patterns of I always say it about myself, creatives always being somewhat creative, right? Because there's probably a reason that you got into teaching art, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Actually, one of my biggest inspirations is my best friend, Abdul, and he's a painter. And he got me into Jackson Pollock and so many other artists. And me and him, it's so funny. Me and him would just go to, do you know Untermeyer Park?
No.
In Westchester?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. It's just this really, really big park. There's lots of space, and we would go into the forest and we just take a bunch of paint and canvases, and we would just go at it for hours. And I was like, this is really cool, and it's something tangible, and I really like working with my hands. So I was like, I think I can do something with this. And so I love kids. I love working with them. So I was just like, why don't I just go into art teaching? And that led to a really cool opportunity actually out in California when I lived there for a little bit. I worked for this nonprofit, and I was a lead teacher, and we had I was in charge of my curriculum, and I worked with so many different kinds of kids in so many different ages, and I was very fulfilled in doing that because I feel like I connected my personal experiences, and I had this one lesson where I would incorporate emotions and color together. And I would just have my kids it would be okay, what color do you feel in your body when you feel this emotion?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's play a thought exercise. If I say red, you feel
warmth.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting that we have different interactions with that. Because when I say red, I feel like my executive producer is doing in the back. I feel anger.
Yeah.
I feel rage.
Yeah. So that was my first thought, but I feel like that's the standard, right? You got to go a little bit deeper because I don't feel angry right now. I feel like whenever you see red, you think about flames and you think about anger. But I just feel like there's so much more to it if you dig a little deeper. That's just what we see in movies, right? We see red, we see someone angry, we see blood, we see violence.
Yeah. I think that's a cool thing to kind of think about, right? Because I think the duality of everything thing in our lives and how you choose to like look at it, right?
Exactly.
Because like
Yeah.
even though like what you're saying is absolutely true, right? Like some of it is like programming through like movies and things like
Right.
that, but some of it is also like flames. Like let's think of like something else like simple,
Yeah.
like fire, right?
I'm done.
Like can be like something like angry and beautiful, but it is also provides warmth, right?
Mhm.
I think like I've been trying to think of it more for myself and like look at like some traits that I consider like negative or bad, right?
Right.
And I'm all like, okay, like there's like a different side to that,
Mhm.
right? Like, and it's up to me to kind of like define like what it is for me. Like if I just define it as like, oh, it's just my anger,
Yeah.
then that's like a shitty like, okay, then that's just what it is, right?
Yeah.
But then if you define it as like, okay, like no, it's like because I have like other emotions attached to it, then it's like, okay, like you give yourself like a little bit of grace when it comes to that too.
Right.
Wait,
Exactly.
what age are you teaching these kids?
So I taught preschool to 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some deep lessons for a preschooler.
Yeah, yeah. I like getting deep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
And then-
interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. No, because like I think when I think about like the people who have driven me to think deeper about like my life and just like the world in general, I really do think about my like teachers. Maybe not as like
Mhm.
young, but like I really think that like my high school like English teachers,
Mhm.
like my history teachers, they had like a really good gauge on like how to display the world and make me think about it just like a little bit deeper. Like that's why I love like written word, because I think
Mhm.
like stories and books and like even movies to me like show you a different aspect of the world that you probably like it gives you perspective. Like that's what good art is realistically supposed to do, right? It's supposed
Yeah.
to give you depth and perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny that I saw like I was like looking through like Twitter today, right? And like people are like, damn, like all of these books on like protesting and like counterculture, right, have existed and people have really like should have gotten the depth from it, like
Yeah.
Hunger Games and things like that. And then
Mhm,
people still
mhm.
get like the whole issue in like Palestine like wrong. It's like, oh, like you didn't really like take in
Yeah.
like the message behind that.
Yeah, I
Like
feel like that's what comes with media sometimes. Like I feel like we just eat it up and we
Mhm.
don't really reflect on it and we don't slow down, we don't think about it. Like, TikTok is a great platform. But I feel like there's so much oversaturation. Like you just like doom scroll and like, you could watch like a really like insightful video. You think about it for like maybe a minute after you watch it and then it's just gone. And I feel like, when it comes to like visual art in real life or like any kind of like installation that you go to see, it's always like you get up, you like put on a fit, you like go meet a friend, and it's like you think about it when you come home. And I don't know, I just feel like people could, especially me, like I feel like I could have a better balance because I generally have to be online more often than the normal person
Mhm.
who's like, I don't know, in tech or like in like marketing or
Mhm.
anything like that. And I just feel like the oversaturation is it's kind of keeping us in our heads all the time.
I think it's detrimental to us like as a society, but it's also detrimental, I think, to the art too, right?
Mhm.
I like see it a lot in like podcasting where it's like everybody, because of course like everything has to fit into like this 15 to 30% algorithm, right? So these like very
Word, yeah.
complex topics like relationships and work and like all of that have to get dumbed down to these like 15-second to 30-second clips, because
Exactly.
the reality is that most people of the things that they consume that you put out, it's only gonna be this 15-second spot,
Yeah.
right? That makes me so mad, right?
It makes me mad too. I
'Cause-
feel like longer format is definitely decreasing.
And it sucks because like it's like people like longer format is decreasing, and then it's like the people who are doing it, like you're never going to get like the virality that comes with like a
Mhm.
15-second clip, right?
Yeah.
It's just impossible, because like I think about like the conversations that I have, right, and like the opinions and like the real stories that I've been able to get out of guests,
Mhm.
and I'm like, damn, it kind of sucks that like I have to encapsulate their entire, like not their entire existence, but their entire story into this like 30-second spot, because that's
Yeah.
all I'm gonna get of your attention, if that.
Yeah.
Because realistically, like, and I know it just based off of like my numbers, like people aren't going to go, or not everybody is going to go from the clip to the full form video to hear like what is this in context, right? And it's detrimental, I think, also in the way that we choose to like view things like marriage, dating, right? Like
Mhm.
everything has to be in like a 30-second to 15-second like tagline, right? Like that's why the questions of like, oh, like it gets dumbed down to like, oh, would you date your partner if they made like less than 100K, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, like it has to be that simple in
Instant.
your mind.
Yeah.
It has to be that simple for like the content that we're producing, right? But you're somebody in a marriage, right? Like in any relationship, like those questions, those like conversations are so much more complex, right? Than just, would you date your partner if they made less than 100K, right? But that's, again, like what is most likely to go viral, is most likely to be like tagged.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate. I feel like before TikTok and maybe even Instagram Reels, we had YouTube. People love watching long format videos. Like I grew up watching like me and my siblings and my cousins, like whenever we eat, I don't know if you do this, but like I like watching something, right? And
I spend at least as long as I eat picking out what I'm watching, right? Like
no word.
and then I put on a 3-hour movie for a 10-minute meal, right?
Yeah, like, and I need to have my video or like my movie before I eat, right? Because it's a vibe. You gotta
set the
vibe.
tone, right?
Yeah.
Like,
but I remember even in high school, like before TikTok and maybe even Instagram, I guess it was like more like photo formatted then. I would watch like 20-minute videos on YouTube, and it was like the best thing ever. So yeah, I'm like also interested to see like how it's gonna impact and influence like the younger generations.
It's interesting. I think that there's going to be like a pushback, right? And I think we're starting to see it. Like I realize like how uninterested because of like I think what you said, like the saturation of media.
Right.
I'm so uninterested by like most, right? Like the last thing I actually watched, which sucks because I actually do consume media like way too often, but I consume like mostly like people that I'm like tracking, but like anything external to get my attention like doesn't really get it done on TikTok. I can remember when I first downloaded it, I was like, oh, everything is entertaining to me.
Yeah.
But now it's like, it's everything is everything, right? So like now I find myself not regressing back to, but find myself looking for like, yo, I need a piece of work that's going to really like move me, right? Like that's going to really like change or impact like the way that I'm thinking about this, right? So I do look for like, I think I do like look for like longer form podcasts, whether it be on health or whatever, right? Because I don't want to hear like a 30-second clip about how keto is going to fix my life, right? Like I want like a real breakdown of like what it actually is, right? Like all the different facets of it. And people used to do that with books. So like I do think that there is going to be a thirst for that knowledge somewhere. I hope so. At least.
Yeah.
For everybody like growing up right now, I definitely hope so, right? Because I think like, and I think about it, like you said it for like Instagram photos. I think it's crazy that we try to like capture like how beautiful certain things are in like a picture that's going to exist for like 10 seconds in somebody's mind. But I think about it, like somebody tomorrow, whatever, objectively put out like the most beautiful photograph to ever be made.
Yeah.
We would all look at that shit for like 5 seconds and it would be absolutely done. And think about like the life and like the experience and like the moment that was captured within that 5 seconds. It's like, yo, we're only going to give it exactly that, just the 5 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think which is why it's important for artists to also like showcase their stuff into galleries, and like create those experiences in real life, because yes, you can go viral and you can make like 15-second videos, but like who are you really touching? Right? And even if you are, like, how do you get in contact with them if you're not meeting like this?
And that's where I think like I'm sure you probably have noticed it in like your content, right? It's like then it's like, how do I create this like relationship with like the person who's consuming it outside of these 5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be like Sufi who, hey, I just saw for 5 seconds and then that was it, right?
Yeah.
Like for somebody to really have like, for you to have like a real audience, it takes a level of relationship, right? Like I think about something as simple as like consuming music, right? Like when we consume music today, it's so easy. We just press a button and it's done. It's so not personal.
Yeah.
Right. But then when you think about like, I'm like a huge like vinyl collector, right? And it's like a full experience, right?
Yeah.
Like taking it out, reading everything, understanding like the artwork, right? And the details that it took to build out that physical album, and you appreciate it. And think about it, that person has been able to then manage to create that experience longer than just the song frame for it. I found myself not even finishing songs, right? It's like, oh, amazing. Like they were able to capture 10 minutes.
Yeah.
They have a real relationship with this artist. They took 10 minutes of my day.
Yeah.
And then plus whatever it took to listen to the entire album, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like going back to what you said a few seconds ago, like on the train here, I was like, skipping a bunch of songs. So I'm just like, I have no idea how much effort they put into making that. And I'm just like, whatever. And I feel like in a sense that's also like detrimental to your self-esteem in so many different ways. So I feel like a lot of creators like I make videos all the time. And I feel like people who are not in the field like have no idea like how much
work it takes,
how much effort goes into it. Like I have to be my own makeup artist, I have to be my own hairstylist, my own like I have to find my fit. I have to edit my own videos. I have to like, film, set up the shot. Like,
you know why though? Because like most people that are looking at you are probably like, not to say this in a fucked up way, but are probably amateurs at what you do.
Yeah.
Right? Because everyone thinks that like, because you think that, hey, you just show up and you like, again, people think I just show up, pod, and this should just move.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yo, you don't realize like I spend like whatever amount of time that this podcast is going to be, I probably spent 10 times that thinking about this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like for you, right? Like you talked about like the physical parts, right?
Yeah.
But even ideating on that, right? Scheduling it out, scheduling out the time to do it. Forget like the actual time and effort that it takes, which is like a lot, but then plus all the moments that like lead up to that, like how am I gonna do that, and to think about it strategically and intentionally, like those are such taxing and demanding things that like completely get lost because you're like, oh, it's cool, fun, right? Like, and it's like, yo, like this is somebody's like life's work at times, right? I think especially with like music, and I've heard that frustration from I've heard that frustration from like artists where it's like, hey, like I put months into this one song and it just didn't go, and that's tough. Like I've had my personal opinion on some pods that I've done. I've hated them. I've hated them, right? Like I didn't get the reaction that I wanted, like all of the reasons, right? I hated them. And then I'm like, yo, at least I get to like immediately get an at bat, right? But somebody like who's creating art, right? It's like, yo, like you don't know where your next at bat is gonna be. It might take you like 3 weeks, 4 months to find the next song that you feel good about. Right? Like that you feel good about. And it's like, yo, we just immediately throw that away.
No, I feel you.
Do you feel like that you're like when you put it out, right? Do you get those moments? Because you've definitely had a consistent like hit, like you've definitely had consistent hits. You've now have consistent like content. You've had things that have gone super viral for you. Do you feel slumps in your work in terms of like, or do you not even like pay attention to that anymore?
Dude, I feel like in the beginning, I would obsess over it a lot.
Yeah. I think I'm in that phase right now. Like I just obsessed. Like people, Suede, P, they all told me that would come. That, like there's going to be a slump. And you're gonna like be like, what the fuck am I doing, right? And I think I'm in it like numbers wise. And it's like honestly been kind of taxing because I've only been riding up until like now, right? And now I have to face the reality that like, oh, am I as good as I think I am? Is this as good as I think it is?
Honestly, what I've learned in that process is that you just got to be consistent. And I think a long time ago, like whether it's with digital creation or with art that I, just put out there, like visual art, I just have to know that it's my baby until I put it out into the world, and then it's not mine anymore. It's for whoever consumes it. It's theirs. It's for them to like perceive it in whatever way they want to. It's for them to reflect on it. And if I continue to stay attached to that, it's only detrimental to where I can take myself next.
Yo, I love that. Yo, clip that. Yo, clip that. No, I love that, right? Because it really, like, that's how powerless I feel about it, right? Because like,
I've been there.
I like, that's how absolutely powerless I feel. Because I'm such like a control freak, right? Where it's like, oh, I want this to like absolutely land the way that I think that it should and could land, right? And when it doesn't, I'm all like, oh shit, like I didn't do it, right? And it's like, oh, like that is like not part of the things that I control. Right? Like I can only control like, does it look good? Does it sound good? Did I try to do my best? But after that, I don't really have any influence on whether it goes or not. Like that was it, right?
I mean, actors say that a lot, right? Like they'll give interviews and they'll be like, oh, like how do you feel like about, the numbers and like how your film did? And they're just like, look, I showed up every day. I gave everybody my time and my effort. And if it didn't run, it didn't run. Like I can't dwell on it.
again, but like back to that being a tough ask to ask of any creator, like that mentality is amazing, right? And that's probably the mentality that gets you to where you are,
Mhm.
because how else do you go through those slumps, right? Like you need to eventually adopt that mentality. But it's hard to ask a creator who's like, for example, like movies. I showed up for 3 months. I could have done anything else. I could have maybe done
Word.
another movie.
Yeah.
I could have maybe done another venture, right?
Yeah.
And it sucks. And that's where I think like it hurts me like probably the most when things don't go. Because
Mhm.
like there is a real opportunity cost to like doing creation,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Because
of
it's like, yo,
course.
I think about it as like, oh, I could have traded this off to just focus on my job, or I could
Yeah.
have focused like I think about like the cost of this. I was like, damn, I could have just gone to a nice dinner. And instead I
Mhm.
put this out and it fucking like didn't go the way that I
Yeah.
wanted it to go. And fuck that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, I
and
feel
it
you.
sucks, right?
It sucks really bad. And you know, for some reason nowadays I've been noticing online, like when you put like you never know what video is gonna be the one. You don't know. There's like the predictability levels are like actually insane.
What was the one?
What do you mean?
Like what was your video that like you just were like, oh shit? And then like did you see it coming? Like I want to talk about that. Cause I like you're saying the predictability is low and that bothers me, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I like to think that like I know exactly what's gonna go, right?
Yeah,
But, like,
yeah.
I don't, right? Like I try to make my
Um,
best guess at it, right? But I just don't.
Yeah, so okay, I think when me and Anjali went viral, that was so insane. That was so
For the
unpredictable.
engagement or the wedding?
No, for okay, so we're not actually not married.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
getting married in
Yeah, yeah.
May. But we had Starboard take photos of us and they went viral because obviously we're like she's Indian and Pakistani, like people politicize our relationship. Um but they were literally photos of just the both of us in front of the New York Public Library.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like we like got like flown out to Norway to do like this conference
Really?
on love. And it was just like so many things started moving in so many different ways. And I was just like, what is going on? And this was like 5 years ago, I'd say.
Okay.
So like a year into us dating. And then since then, I think I've really tried to I guess work on myself and like as an individual put myself out there because I feel like in us making content together and like working together so much, like we've talked about this a lot. We like lost our individualities because people always wanted to see us together, which I think is fantastic. But I think also for my self-esteem and for my like life goals, like I really needed to like take a step back. And I did that, and that's where the fashion content came in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I like with my queer Muslim series, I started to get a little bit more personal, like talking directly to the camera. And I think before that I was very like I'm generally like a very reserved person unless like
Mm-hmm.
you know, we have a conversation like this. You really get to know me. So yeah, I think
It's a tough ask for you and Anjali, right? To be like, yo, obviously, like y'all didn't come into this and we're like, oh, like we want to do like couple content, right?
Yeah.
Like it happened, but then that's like a strain, not just on like the business part of things, but also like your relationship, right? It's like, yo,
Mhm.
like I am now like just always like tied to you, right? Like, because
Yeah.
even regular people who don't make content, they hate that, right? They
Yeah.
hate when like you're just an extension of your partner,
Mhm.
or people look at y'all as just like a
Mhm.
sedentary like unit, right?
Yeah.
Because I look at some friends where it's just like, oh, like I know if like one friend is there, I know that their partner is going to be there, and I know it's
Exactly.
just like a constant thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like what you're exactly saying, like you lose your individuality as like a person, right? Because like
Mhm.
you want to be two people that are in a relationship with each other. You don't want to be
Mhm.
just like, oh, they're like in a relationship and that's their entire like personality and like who
and
they
their
are.
entire lives.
And especially when it must be even like harder when then it extends to like, yo, what I do professionally, right? Like outside of the personal part, now it's also my business, literally my business, where it's
Literally
like
my business.
people are identifying like us as just the couple, right? It's like,
Yeah.
no. Like I have my own individuals, careers, dreams, all of that, right? And it's like, oh, I don't get to do that because y'all just made it. But I'm happy to hear that y'all made that active choice for your relationship and for the business, right? Because I think a lot of people in that spot would have been like, oh, we got viral off of that. Let's just play into it, right? Because then the goal is like, oh, just the virality, right? But it didn't align with like what y'all wanted to do individually, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we did for a while. Like we rode that wave for I would say like maybe like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we came to that conclusion. We were like, we need more for ourselves. And it was definitely like a mutual decision. I feel so much more fulfilled. Yeah.
And honestly, like that's like the most important thing, right? That like, hey, like I came, and that's like what makes now they might have you do more relationship content. If you can see, like you be dropping bars about the relationship,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you're good at it. So like I see why people would be like, like let's hear.
Yeah, and I mean in terms of numbers, like our content together, whether it's like video format or photo format, always does better than our individual content. But at first, like when I started making fashion videos, it was like I was like you, I was like, yo, this. Like, are my fits trash? Like, what's going on? Like, you know, like obviously, like I'm a confident person, and I know I dress well, and that's predominantly because I focus on functionality and being comfortable. Like, I'm not the type of person to dress up for other people.
I love that you
and
said
follow
that.
trends.
I love that you said that. You know,
Yeah.
I love that you said that because that just shows me that you have complete alignment in what your brand is, right?
Yeah.
Because the brand deal that I just associated with you was the Uniqlo deal.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like functionality and like realism, that's literally the Uniqlo brand.
Yeah, it's
right?
actually so insane when that one came in, and I was like, okay, my hard work is doing something. Like, alhamdulillah, this is great. You know, like let's keep pushing, you know? So going back to what you said earlier, like you're gonna get there.
You love when it like aligns, when your brand hits exactly where it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Like my best feeling for this is like when I hear like South Asian people in like different like random markets like tell them, like I've had friends that I have like friends in Ohio, right? And then he's sitting there, and then one of his boys at like a pregame goes, yo, like check out this like podcast. And then he sees my face and he don't even know about this.
Word, yeah.
And then he's like, wait, that's like, I like know him. And then he texts me the next day. He's like, yo, like you reached Ohio. And I was like, oh, that's landed. Awesome. Like even if it's not landing to the level that I need to land it at.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like where I need to hit it is exactly where it's going. And that like must feel amazing when you do secure those brand deals that are exactly in line with not your brand, but who you are as like a person.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so insightful. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I think like that's the other part that people forget, because we like put it into these like business terms like brand, right? But what you're saying is absolutely true. It's who you are as a person. Like that, like that's more importantly than anything, then that's what it is, right? When I talk about this, it's not like my extension of my brand. I don't even think I have a brand, right?
Yeah.
I look at it as like, yo, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
But that's what, again, back to like why the difficulties of it, that's what makes it harder. Because then it's like, oh, you just don't love, like, yo, this is the inner, like, Scorpio, whatever you want to call it. It's like, oh, you don't love me, right? Because if I put this out and this is me, you just don't, and that is like a harder pill to solve for somebody like me who's just so like, I need to be like loved, right?
Yeah.
I blame my brown mom for that. Right? Like, I need to be loved, right? It's like, oh, it's tough. I put this out and it's an extension of me, and y'all don't love it.
Yeah, no, I feel you. And I feel like in a sense, when you're a digital creator or you're an artist, like you're very vulnerable. Like you're putting yourself out there, and it's, in a sense, you're like emotionally, you're kind of naked, you know? And so when you feel like you don't meet the goals that you want to, even though you put in so much effort and time and funds, like you said earlier.
And soul.
That's the most important part, right? Because I'm sure like when you're doing this, whether or not, you know, you're hitting the numbers or not, you feel fulfilled. And this is what you want to be doing.
And you put a piece of yourself in. But again, that's why I said that the people watching you probably don't understand that, because amateur level, right? Because like for you to really land the way that you need to bare your soul a little bit. Like the art, like the best art in the world is, anybody can make a song that says like, I do this and I get this money and all of that, right?
Yeah.
That don't really, it's when you put a piece of your soul into the art, right? Like when you look at a piece of work and be like, oh, this person put themselves into this, right?
Yes.
The same reasons that we're talking about, oh, like that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
That's also what makes it stand out, right?
Yeah.
Like when we talk about, like, I always use like Drake as an example, right?
Yeah.
Like the music that we love the most is the most where it's like, oh, like, no, this is so real. Like he means exactly what he's saying, because he's using the names.
Yeah.
He's really pouring his entire soul into this song. And those are the things that we ended up fucking with as like any culture, right? Because you're able to identify when people really are their brand, right? Like
Mhm,
inauthenticity, because of the saturation probably,
Yeah.
is so easily spotted out.
Yeah.
It's like, I know you're not about this. And that's,
Dude.
yo, I be hating.
Yeah.
I be hating because like I see when it's inauthentic and I get mad.
Yeah.
Because I'm all like, damn, like, and that shouldn't be my approach, but it is because I'm just like a little anger, right?
Yeah,
Red
yeah,
anger.
yeah.
Like I see somebody who's like not bearing their soul for it and just pod into pod, and it drives me insane because I'm all like, oh, y'all get to just like, even if you show up and fail, it don't mean shit to you.
Yeah, no, so like obviously like I'm going deeper into the fashion stuff, not to be boring and come back to it, but it's making me think of like, so I scroll on Reels more often than TikTok because I feel like that platform caters more to like my fashion stuff, and I try to find audios, right? And I don't really go for trending audios because I like want it to be the vibe of the video that I created. And I see so many videos now of people creating fits that are nice, but it's just that.
But you understand, that's the perfect way to identify that, right? Because they just see the viral sound and they're all like, oh, okay, I can go viral if I put a fit on and I have this in the audio, right? It's so inorganic, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the funny thing that people don't realize, like when I even make content, right? I was like, listen, if I wanted to, right? I know the easy layup on how I get this shit viral.
Yeah.
But it would just be so inauthentic to me. I know what I would have to come here and say. I know what I would have to like do, right? And my soul just isn't aligned with that. Like I know, like if I come up here and just start saying some wild shit about like South Asians and just start hating on it, right?
Yeah, you're gonna get traction.
Because
that's not who you are.
That's not who I am, right? Like Wolf in the other room, right? He has this like clip where he's all like, it's unfortunate, but the things that get traction, unfortunately, are like the things that are at least quick traction, are the things that are like easy to hate on, or they're violent, or like videos like that easily go viral, right?
Yeah.
So we all know that. But the people who can't do that, it's because it's like not authentic to our soul, right?
Yeah.
Like I see it in podcasting all the time where it's like, yo, people come up and like they say opinions that they don't really even mean because they know it's going to hit a market. Like if I come up here and say like, oh, I'm not having any girl who has a body count above 5, right? It's like, oh, like immediately people share like this dude's a dickhead, right?
Yeah.
But that's just like.
But you get attention.
If that was the goal though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But like for a lot of people, that is just the goal, right?
Yeah.
And those are the things that make me so mad because I'm all like, I see
that makes me mad too.
It does.
So
Okay.
That's where the anger is justified. I'm like, yeah.
I'm sure when you see somebody who's like not really, like they don't really care about the fashion the way that like you probably actually care about it. They're just like, okay, like I can go viral doing this. I like the easiest indicator for me, and not that people can have multiple interests, but when I see like people on their Instagram page, it's like 18,000 different things. It's like, oh, you're just trying to find like the way that you could go viral. Like none of these, like you haven't done any of these long enough like to show that, hey, I really care about this, right? Because the people who really care about this, they're gonna have 30 of the same things that have gotten like 5 views, and then they might catch one.
Yeah. I feel like there are different ways to go viral though, and not just being controversial.
Again, I think the virality part is, and that's why I don't even like look, like I can't look at it like that, right? I'm all like, you know what, like virality at the end of the day, like, yeah, so what? Somebody comes up and says some fucked up shit and they viral for a minute. Most of them not going to retain that. Most of them can't keep it going. Most of them aren't going to build it into anything, right? And that's how you have to really look at it, right? Like, yo, they might have been able to put together one fit with one trending sound, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? After that, their fit's trash, or the audio's not hitting anymore, right? So now what? You done. Like you're most likely, unless you really care about this, for the same reasons we said before, you're gonna give up on it.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, oh, I don't really care about this. Like I tried to be viral, I got virality, I don't care. Fuck it.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about keeping up with like a piece of content or like a piece of artwork that you put out, and then like trying to keep the momentum going, that's really hard. I feel like I still struggle with that for sure. Like there's so many points in my life where I felt stagnant, and like you, I was just like, what am I doing? And there was this one point, I'd say about a year ago, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like I need to figure something else out. Like I'm not feeling fulfilled. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. And that was also like the transition from where I realized that it was coming from the fact that like I was always attached to another name. I was always attached to Anjali. And I was just like, I need to take a step back. So I took a step back And at that point, I was also very attached to the numbers. Like I would look at my follower count, I would look at my views, like my engagement, like my insights, and I'd be like, this is trash. This sucks. Like, where am I really going with this? And then I stopped focusing on the numbers, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna put out what I like, and if people like it, they'll engage with it, and if they don't, I really don't care. And then I kind of did something organically on its own.
The ego death part of it.
Yeah.
Because that's when the art starts becoming so much better, right? Because when the ego dies from it, you're able to put out the most, because we talked about it, like what actually hits. It's either stupid fake viral shit or really, really the most authentic shit.
Yeah.
And the only way you get to the most authentic is by having no ego when it comes to the art, right? It's like where it's like, oh, I have no number driven, no nothing, right? Like when I can fluidly have these conversations and it doesn't even matter what my guests say. It doesn't matter what I say, right? It's just, I'm just going to have the conversation that I want to have immediately here, right? We talked about it before, why I don't do questions.
Yeah.
That's exactly why. Because I'm all like, that's so inauthentic to me, right? Because I'm not thinking about it like that. Like I would suck at that.
Yeah.
Like if somebody asked me to just read cue cards, I would be terrible at that, right? Like my ADHD just wouldn't let it happen, right?
Feel you.
Like this to me is like, but I think when I fully can black out, and I know.
Yeah.
Like I know in conversations, like I fully black out. I don't remember what I say. I don't remember the conversation we have. Because it really is me being so present. It's not me worrying about like, oh, this is going to be amazing when I clip. Like I know I said that joke.
Yeah.
But it's really like, not thinking about the business part of it at all. Just to think about, I'm just doing this, right? Because when that ego dies, you're then able to make your most authentic and best art.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree.
It definitely helps for you to have, I was like thinking about this while you were talking, because like my therapist always says like I need to be around like other creatives because, and it definitely helps that you have like a partner who does that as well, right? Because it's like, oh, okay, like anytime I feel about it, you know exactly the things I'm thinking. Like think about it. Me and you are talking and we're identifying the same things that we've felt along our journey.
Yeah.
Your partner is there saying like, yo, come on. This is a part of the game.
Yeah, it's definitely a privilege because it's so easy for me to like bounce ideas off of her. But back to what you were saying, like you have to have creative people around you. You do. And you have to stay consistent with it too. Like whether it's conversations that you guys are having or you're like, yo, look at this really cool idea that I have. Like, do you want to collaborate on it? Like, what do you think? Like, like what should I do? When should I start? Blah, blah, blah. You need that, but then you also need your own focus and your own drive because you can't rely on other people as much as you think you can.
Yeah. But I think like to talk about like the community aspect of it, right? Like creativity in itself is such like a collaborative process, right? Creation is such a collaborative process. Like we see it in like music all the time, right? Where it's like, oh, like if you're just creating music in your bedroom in a silo and you're not experiencing like world people, like your music's only going to be so good, right?
Yeah.
Like I think about it like the community, right? I'm like, if I make it like a very active effort to try and be at places that I know like some of the people that I want within my like circle network are going to be at. Like I don't even really like going out. Like that's like now my only form of going out.
Yeah,
like
no, me too.
And it's not from like a networky weird way, right? It's like, no, I really want to feel like a part of this. Like we were talking about the moment earlier at No Nuzzer, right? That he got caught on video, him and like Fahad like hugging it out, right?
Yeah.
And I was telling you, I was like, no, that wasn't just like a piece of like video that went like that went places, right? It's like, no, that feeling was real, right? Like creatives seeing creatives and all feeling a singular thing, right? Even the next day, like Faisal, who's like part of the Indo team, right? He like posts, he's like, yo, like he posts this like whole like script where he's just like, yo, 10 years ago when I moved to New York, things like this would have never been possible. And it's crazy to see. And like there's something along that sentiment. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's crazy. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
And me and him didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, yo, can you just like mention me so I could repost it? Right? Because that's exactly how I felt. And I'm all like, oh, no. Like creation, collaboration, like it really comes from community, right? Like even like within the artist community, that's why comedians hang out with other comedians.
Exactly. That's a really good point.
Even like all the artists back in the old days, like they all like whatever your friends, peers, authors, like they hanging out because it's like, oh, like you're the only person that truly gets what this struggle is, right? Like obviously like me and you do different things.
Yeah.
But it's a very like we understand like the process of creation and how taxing it is on the soul.
Exactly.
Where it's like, if you ask like a regular person who just
They're
works
gonna be
at,
like, what? You don't have to explain. You're gonna have to explain things to them. Whereas it's like other artists who then become your friends or like close people. It's just organic, you know. Like you don't have to. Like I hate doing that. I hate explaining what I do to people.
what you do and like
what I do.
what it feels, right? Like what you really do,
yeah,
right?
Because
Like,
it's hard to translate that when they don't understand or they've never done something like that. You know.
I was thinking about like, imagine going to my like 9 to 5 and be like, yeah, like I pod and I talk to these creatives and this is like my vision. They're like, what the fuck are you saying, right? Like, and it's like the only people who are gonna get, like, if I told you that and we weren't even doing this, if I just told you that and you did what you did, you'd be like, oh, that makes sense.
That's dope. Yeah, like tell me more about it. Yeah.
It's an insane thing to like think about it, and that's why like I feel like a true, like, I don't know what you want to call it, like a fraternity, a brotherhood, a sisterhood, like an organization of like what that really feels like, right? What that community feels like. I got off the phone with like Vi and he called me about like this project and I was like, damn, like he just knew off the like he didn't even have to explain the thing.
Yeah.
He explained like the first thing. I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and me and him were talking about it. He's like, oh no, you do get it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that he's like, yeah, I thought I'd have to explain. I was like, come on,
No.
bro. Like, we come from the same things.
Yeah.
We come from the same things. And I think like, but the most magical thing I think is when you can make the people on the outside of that feel that way as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's when it hits. That's when you like, that's when the art really hits. When you can make them feel the feeling of whatever this is and they understand, it's like, oh, like you're finally getting it. Cause like my biggest goal with this, and like I like literally check in with my cousins whether they're like actually like locked in, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, do y'all understand? Because they don't like live in the city. Like I'm like, they're not a part of this like culture. I was like, when y'all hear this, like, do y'all feel it? Right?
And what's their answer?
Again, I'm trying. Like not to the degree they see it though. Like probably see it because think about it. They heard it pre when I was first ideating on the idea. Right?
Yeah.
And from there, they probably didn't make sense at all. But now seeing a little bit of it, I might not make them full believers, but they starting to see, oh, like he's connecting some of the things.
You know, something that I noticed when I was on your page with the podcast and stuff, I'm not sure if you have a personal page or not, and if you like, you know, show more of your personality on that. But I feel like something that you might benefit from is you showing yourself. Because I feel like that was something that I didn't get. Like, I could tell you're really good at holding a conversation when you were talking to people, and I can also tell that now. Like, I feel very comfortable. But I want to know more about, like, you. Like, who are you? What do you do?
We're in the process. I just hired a creative director
Great.
to do that. And that was the first thing that they said.
Yeah.
That's how I know you're good at this. Like, no, because like that's the first thing they said. They're all like, yo, like people need to start showing up for like, what is your brand, right? Because
Exactly.
like, of course, like my guests are brands. And I think that's like the challenging part because I know like when I start showing just me, like I have to show it in like tidbits because if I just show me, I just know the numbers aren't there, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that is a big part of my reason. But again, like we were talking before, like not the most authentic thing. Because I agree, because I think like the most fly things of these aren't just like these 15-second things of what my guest said, right?
Yeah.
I really do think it's like the conversation in depth that I get to get out of it. Like I think like that's like another part that people don't realize. Like I'm sure you've like realized like I pick up real game from talking to everybody here.
Yeah.
Whether like emotionally, whether spiritually, like these things like re-energize me. Like I'm sure after this conversation, because I know like this is one of those where like I'm blacking out.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna leave this and I'm gonna feel like energized.
Yeah.
I'm gonna feel good about the art and like.
Yeah. This is kind of a segue into a different thing, but apart from artists, like, you know, people who are in different fields too, it's important to have them around you, but it's so important to have close friends and people around you who you feel energized from. Like, and that's what I take pride in when I like hang out with my close friends, like whether they're artists or not. Like, I need that to fuel me because, like, you know, all of these like really cool events where like you meet different people from the community, like in the brown community and stuff, like it's awesome. It's so cool. But sometimes I leave those spaces and I feel exhausted.
I don't let that shit happen to me.
Yeah. How do you do that? Because I feel like it's hard for me.
Like if you ever watch, like if we ever go out, like you'll
okay.
you'll
we gotta do it.
Absolutely see, because like let me not give the game away. Like, I go around and I have the minimum conversations I need to have with everybody.
Yeah.
And then you'll notice I just retreat back to my friend group. like no matter where
Yeah.
it is, right? Like I'll do like I'll talk to like 100 like people at that
Yeah,
spot, right?
yeah.
But then I'm at it's gonna be quick,
Yeah.
and then I always joke around with my friends. I was like, "Yo, y'all know how y'all are my friends?
Yeah.
'Cause I can have a conversation with you longer than 15 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
like other
Yeah.
than that, my ADHD kicks in. I don't even want to be here anymore. Like I
Yeah.
just leave.
That's crazy. I feel like sometimes I can't even last 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I feel like max for me is like 5.
Well, so that is, and that's like a part of it that I'm like trying to remove. Like I'm trying to remove the fact that like you have to, because I think people do that so inorganically where they have these conversations, and it's like you're forcing this conversation because you think that it gets something out of you. It's just like not even like a good interaction, right? Like I've like chosen, like I don't care how important somebody is. Like if the conversation isn't there, I'm just like keeping it pushing.
It's like
right?
extractive.
Huh?
It's like something where the person that you're having a conversation with is only wanting something from you.
Or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Like I've definitely come into conversations when I was younger,
Yeah.
and I'm all like, you know what, I'm like trying to extract with this, and
Mm-hmm.
and you know what's crazy? Back to the authenticity thing, you're never able to actually extract something if
Yeah.
it's inauthentic.
Yeah.
The people that you get the most out of are the people who do feel energized by you,
Yeah.
right? Because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, like he energizes
That's
me.
so true.
Like, because think about it, even your
That's
friend,
so true.
even your friends, right? Like you probably get the most things, right? Because they feel what you said, like energized by you. So then they're able to give you their best.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I feel drained after you, that was my deposit into you.
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
just drained me. I'm not doing this for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, we learn from each other, right? And art inspires art. That's it. Like, I feel like in that sense, nothing is original, which is great.
Because I think you develop a level of like empathy and like real insight when that ends up becoming like the case, right? When you can accept like, hey, like this interaction, like, listen, you're gonna find your tribe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I might not be your tribe. Like I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
You're not everybody's cup of tea, right? But it's like, you know what? Like that doesn't matter. Like I'm just gonna go to where I'm actually appreciated, where my work is valued, right?
Yeah.
Like I know, like I'd probably in certain circles, I'd be the most annoying thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that, right? Like I'd
Yeah.
be so annoying. I'd be talking about the pod. I'd be like scatterbrained. So like sometimes my friends know that, but I have the greatest friends in the world, right? Like they know that, like, yo, if Aram don't hit me for like 3 weeks, he still absolutely like love me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like if my cousin's like, yo, if Aram just like messaging us at like 3 a.m., like it's not because he's just like manic, right? He's just like really thought of us at that time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think like having that level of comfort with your people allows you, the other stuff just don't matter. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter when you go to these like brown events and you're trying, it's like, yo, like I can
It's
just
like
go
you
back
have
to,
that cushion to fall back on, and that's really important.
yeah. I made it a point now because I was like, I told my friends, and like, it's like a common thing. I was like, yo, I'm only doing I'm doing 2 things like socially. Other than
Mhm.
that, I'm just working, right? 2 things socially. One, industry shit that I have to do,
Right.
right? That we all might go to because y'all also around, right?
Right. Right.
Or stuff that is just with y'all.
Mm.
The industry shit has to be some sort of value to me. Otherwise, I'm not putting my energy out there,
Mhm.
right? And then the y'all is to re-energize me.
That's
Right.
really smart. I gotta implement that a little bit more.
I'm sure you do it organically.
I feel like I do it organically, but I feel like the way that you're describing it makes it sound like you're a little bit more structured and rigid in a healthy way.
Getting there.
Yes.
Definitely, it's like definitely
Yeah.
something you negotiate, right? But
Yeah.
I'm so tired of feeling tired.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hate
feel
going.
you.
I hate like wait, like you know what I'm saying. Like I want to get back to like the things that I want to do and the things that I want to focus on, right?
Yeah.
And the people that I want to be around. Because I like it's not even fair to the other people because it's like, yo, you're not getting my best, right?
Yeah.
So let me go to like my people so I can give them my best for as much time as I can like afford to give them right now,
Yeah.
right? Like I think like it's like the whole conversation of like quality, like time, and I like
Mhm.
really I think now age appreciate that
Yeah.
a lot more, right? It's like
Yeah.
no, it doesn't matter like how often we hang out. Like we all have our individual lives, individual relationships.
You can't take offense to that for sure. Yeah.
You have to kind of understand, right? It's like, yo, like these people are balancing whole other like lives outside of this, right?
Yeah.
Like I always think it's like simple as like friends getting married. It's like, yo, like that's like a
Mhm.
huge project for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like this is a huge project for me. Like you getting married is a huge project for you.
It is. It's a process for sure.
yeah. Yo, you felt that like a little bit too hard. You're like, damn.
I did. I'm like deep in it right now. I'm like
your
at
brain
the
immediately went to all the things you have to do.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit. All right.
Are you excited?
I am excited. I am excited. I think I'm also nervous. Cause if you think about it, a wedding, especially like a South Asian wedding, it's like a really big party that goes on for like 5 days. So like imagine like throwing an event for like 4 hours, like multiply that by like, I don't know,
I already know the answer to this.
72 hours.
I already know the answer to this because everyone's answer is the same. But I'm
Yeah.
assuming you and Anjali both have big families.
Yes.
Yeah. Every
yeah.
hours.
But then it's also like her and I are really good at creating community together, whether we're like in California, because her family's out there, my family's out here. And so we have those people coming too. And so, but it's really comforting to know that 80% of the people that are going to be there are people that we feel energized around.
80%.
Yeah.
I think that's so tough. When I hear people talking about like their wedding, especially, you only hear that with South Asian people, right? Where they feel like drained after their wedding. And I'm all like, yeah, like your wedding is supposed to be like, white people don't have that concern. White people have such a blast at their wedding, right? And it's like, no. Like we like normalize like, oh, we're going to have to take pictures and it's going to be miserable, right? It's like, dog, like you're spending how much money?
So much money, bro.
Spending how
Weddings
much
are insane. They're insane. And I think
the wedding vendor market is definitely like inflated, right? Like people people are like gassing those prices.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
like
I hear like
level.
the quotes and I'm just like,
this is insane. Yeah.
Because I hear some of the rates and I'm just like, this doesn't even make sense. Like I hear like rates for DJs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dog, that does not make sense. Like I like promote clubs, right? I know what DJ contracts are supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Why are you as a wedding DJ making 10 grand for a 3-hour wedding? You are not that nice.
Yeah. I think going back to the whole like South Asian weddings too, families have a lot to do with that, right? They're like, oh, we want to invite like that one uncle that held you when you were 3 years old because they invited us to their kid's wedding. And me and Anjali don't have that.
Yeah.
Because we like put like a strict boundary. Like we gave Anjali's mom and dad like a cap of how many guests they can invite. And I think compared to other South Asians that have weddings, we have a smaller wedding. We have like 120 guests.
That's actually so impressive.
Yeah.
Because I always talk about having like a small wedding whenever I decide to like get married, right? And I'm like, the minimum I could realistically have, unless like the other side of like the arrangement is like has no family.
Yeah.
I'm like, like it has to be at least like 200, right?
Yeah.
Like based on, and I'm talking like bare bones. So 120 is impressive.
Yeah. And I was like, I actually want like 90. And then I had to negotiate the 90. So
dude, we all want like 50.
Yeah.
Like,
I want 40, bro.
Think about it. I think about it. I'm all like, is there 90 people that really know me?
Yeah.
Like really know me?
Yeah. No.
Like
there's probably like maybe 20.
Really know me. Because I think about like there's a clip that's going like viral around, right? Where it's like, if you haven't talked to somebody in 5 years, like you should not invite them to your wedding. And I think about it, I'm like, damn, that's a lot of y'all family. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many people that I'm just like, like we knew each other when we were kids. But you haven't checked up, like, because it is somewhat of an effort thing, right? Like, you haven't checked up on me. Like, you haven't been around and seen, like, the struggles that I've gone through. So what? You just get to see the fly popping wedding that I get to have? Like,
You're saying 5 years? Honestly, for me, it's like 2, maybe even 1.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's how you tighten it up. Because, like, I feel like I would extend it to, like, 3, and then I'd be like, oh, that's actually a decent amount of people.
Unless you guys are not in close proximity physically, but they're still keeping up with you. That's different.
No, that's absolutely fine, bro. I don't care. There's friends that like I know because of like, they're in school, but I hear from them every other month, whatever the frequency that we have is, right? But it's like some people, some of my family I haven't talked to in like years. Yeah, you my cousin, right?
Yeah.
Dog, I've seen you once every other wedding. And we don't even talk at that wedding.
Yeah.
Like, why are you coming to mine, right? Like, we're not going to interact. You're not even going to be happy for me.
Whenever you're ready to get married, I feel like that is something that you should consider.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's your wedding day. You don't really have to think about other people's feelings that much.
Again, it's like the South Asian racing, right? It's
yeah.
like, we care so much about like community, people, right? So it's like, it ends up being like a whole thing. I think we're wrapping up with Sufi. I end every podcast with this question. it's like my version, not like manifesting, but like it's actually like goal setting.
Mhm.
I say like call your shot, right? Where it's like, hey, something you want to make happen within whatever timeline, 3 years, 5 years, 1 year. So I want to ask you because I want to be able to like look back at this and be like, yo, Sufi said this, and then down the line, I want to be like, oh, damn, Sufi did that,
Word.
right? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask Sufi Malik, call your shot.
I want my own business. I have my own business, but I want to expand it, and I want it to be about fashion. So maybe that might be like a clothing line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to see the Sufi Malik clothing line?
Yeah.
I'm with it. Are you like? I mean, you're already artistic. So the design piece.
I've done a like limited clothing line with
Mhm.
this Indian brand called Ica. I did like gender neutral like clothing, and I designed everything. I could show you it later.
Yeah. I'm with it.
But yeah, it's definitely been a dream of mine to like expand on that and do it full time.
We seeing it this year, next year, soon?
Hopefully soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta strategize a little bit for sure.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sufi, I want to say first of all, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
Thank you for being an
having me.
absolute gem. But no, like I want to say, like I kind of like give everyone like a little pep talk at the end. But I want to say, like what you're doing is important. Like the community that you're doing it for is important. I'm sure you and Anjali both understand that for like the position that y'all are in. Like I don't have to
Yeah.
go too much on that, right? But like y'all are like important in that. So like I always say, like especially everybody, right? But especially for y'all, like it's important that y'all keep going, keep pushing that because there's a bunch of other Sufi Maliks down the line
Mhm.
that are like, oh shit, don't you know what I mean? Like it's getting
Yeah,
done,
no, I
and
feel you.
I can do it, right? So I think that's like
Yeah.
one of the flash things in the world in terms of like creation. Like I always say, like creation is the closest thing to divinity that we ever get. So I always want more people to do this, right? But
Yeah.
from what we're saying, a true, honest place. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yo, thank y'all for listening. Peace. Cooked?
Great.
Amazing.
That was good. You were fantastic at that.
That was
Thank
so
you.
good.